Welcome to This Explainer. We're jumping straight into a really fascinating geopolitical shift today, and that's the rapidly deepening relationship between India and Australia. If you've been paying attention to the recent summit in Melbourne, you know we've just seen a massive flurry of historic agreements. But what does it all actually mean for us? Are these two nations just kind of finding some temporary common ground, or are they locking into a truly durable, long-term alliance? Let's dive in and find out. Okay, before we tackle the heavy geopolitics, we really have to recognize the deep, everyday human connection that underpins this whole relationship. PM Modi recently summed it up perfectly when he highlighted how blended these two cultures have become. He literally called the diaspora the living bridge between the two nations. It's just a fantastic metaphor for everything we're about to explore today. So, here is our roadmap for today. First, the living bridge. Second, powering India's nuclear ambitions. Third, securing the Indo-Pacific. Fourth, tech and supply chains. And finally, convergence or true alignment. Section 1. The living bridge. Cultural and people-to-people ties. The sheer demographic scale here is absolutely shifting the foundation of this relationship. Get this, for the very first time, the Indian origin community has surpassed the UK-born population to become Australia's largest immigrant-born community. No way, right? But it's true. This completely turns the diaspora into a vital cultural and economic asset, and it fundamentally changes the dynamic from the ground up. And, we're seeing this goodwill fostered at the very highest levels, too. Australia is voluntarily returning some highly significant historical artifacts back to India. We're talking about a sacred Nandi stone sculpture, a metal trident featuring Bhadrakali, and this absolutely stunning six-headed Karthikeya statue. It's a huge diplomatic gesture that really cements that living bridge we just talked about. Moving on to Section 2, powering India's nuclear ambitions, the uranium deal. India has set a massive target for itself, reaching 100 gigawatts of nuclear power capacity by 2047. Now, obviously, renewables like solar are booming right now, but they mostly just meet daytime demand. To secure baseload power, that steady, continuous electricity you need for the night without relying on coal, nuclear is absolutely crucial. But scaling to 100 gigawatts requires some serious fuel diversification, and Australia's vast uranium reserves, they're basically the perfect match. But getting that Australian uranium into Indian reactors hasn't exactly been a walk in the park. Following India's 1998 tests, there was some deep international isolation. A major breakthrough did happen with the 2014 Civil Nuclear Agreement. But honestly, aside from a tiny testing sample in 2017, commercial shipments totally stalled. It actually wasn't until the 2026 Melbourne summit that the administrative arrangements were officially operationalized. So what finally broke that massive deadlock? The absolute game changer here was domestic policy, specifically the Shanti Act passed in late 2025. Basically, this legislative breakthrough finally cleared up the liability concerns that had stalled Australian exports for a whole decade. By opening India's nuclear sector up to private companies and, crucially, laying down a massive 20,000 crore rupee budget for small modular reactors, it finally gave Australia the commercial confidence they needed to start shipping. Section 3. Securing the Indo-Pacific. Defense and Maritime Pacts. Right, so the 2026 summit produced some really concrete defense deliverables. We saw a joint declaration on defense, a maritime security roadmap, and a really crucial MOU between the Australian Maritime Border Command and the Indian Coast Guard. Put all these together, and they're clearly designed to help their militaries operate seamlessly and enhance real-time strategic coordination across the whole region. A prime example of this integration is the Information Fusion Center for the Indian Ocean region. This hub really highlights a shared threat assessment between the two navies. They're increasingly converging on monitoring mutual challenges. We're talking about unregulated shadow fleets trying to bypass sanctions, coercive activity that sits just below the threshold of actual conflict, and vital threats to undersea communication cables. It's a huge deal. Which brings us to Section 4, Tech and Supply Chains, the PACTS Initiative. At the summit, they also announced PACTS. That's the Partnership on Cyber, Critical Technologies, and Supply Chains. Essentially, what this means is both countries are actively hedging against supply chain disruptions. By setting up these targeted, flexible, minilateral arrangements, they're significantly bolstering the safety and resilience of their research and industrial links. And the ultimate goal? To reduce over-reliance on any single global power for critical tech. Actually, scratch that. It hasn't all been perfectly smooth sailing. Despite these high-level economic pacts, experts are flagging a major operationalization gap. While overall trade is growing sharply, smaller exporters, your small and medium enterprises, are facing a huge awareness gap on both sides when it comes to actually using these trade agreements. If smaller businesses can't navigate the red tape, the trade alignment stays concentrated at the top, with the big players, and fails to be truly broad-based. So, this all brings us to a massive, overarching question. Is this just strategic convergence, or is it a durable alignment? Like, are India and Australia genuinely building an interlocked structural future, or are they just temporarily sharing some overlapping interests because of the current global climate? Let's dig into that in Section 5, Convergence or True Alignment. When we look closely at this, we start to see the real limits of their strategic alignment. While they are cooperating more than ever, their primary orientations are actually quite different. Australia's most consequential defense decisions, like the AUKUS deal, are heavily oriented toward the Western Pacific. India, meanwhile, has to constantly split its focus between continental border threats and the broader Indian Ocean. So their operational overlaps are actually a lot narrower than the soaring political rhetoric might suggest. And to put that into perspective, there is a massive gap between this elite political convergence and everyday public perception. According to a recent Lowy Institute poll, when Australians were asked who the most important power will be in a decade, 54% said China. And India? Just 5%. Only 5%. So despite the high trust between governments, the Australian public's recognition of India's strategic weight still heavily lags behind. But here is the real kicker. The powerful shared instinct that's actually driving them together: hedging. That same poll shows Australian trust in the United States is at a record low of just 31%. Both India and Australia are looking at a really volatile world and realizing that long-standing single-point dependencies are massive liabilities. Australia is hedging against an unpredictable Washington and its economic reliance on China, while India is diversifying its own dependencies. They're taking parallel steps to protect themselves. So how do they fix it? For this partnership to transition from a mere convergence of convenience into a truly durable alignment, they have to take 3 crucial steps. Step 1, institutionalize the role of that massive diaspora to help small businesses navigate trade. Step 2, broaden those economic gains way beyond just the megacorporations. And Step 3, continuously deepen their shared maritime operations out in the real world. As we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with one final thought. Will these shared geopolitical anxieties be enough to forge a truly durable alliance over the long term? Or is this vibrant living bridge destined to remain just a temporary convergence of convenience in a really uncertain world? It's a question that is absolutely going to define the Indo-Pacific for decades to come. Thank you so much for joining me, and keep questioning the world around you.